I actually was assigned to the GRCS team at KPMG. This is broadly known as the risk analysis, but what they call it is governance, risk, and compliance services
Wow.
division.
Okay.
The advice I got after that was to sort of take a year to work with them. Uh, and I think this is valuable advice, to be honest. I think this is for anyone who's even considering certain master's programs at this particular point in time, right?
Mm.
When you're right out of university, what you don't realize is that you don't have too much to fall back upon at that particular point in time. You just have your undergraduate study, whatever you've done for your undergraduate, right? So I mean, it's very good to have a network, a brand, something in the professional world that you can relate to.
One thing I
You're
wanted to
being
ask
kind.
you is when did you exactly give your CFA? Did you give your level 1 during your undergrad, or did you start after?
So I'll tell you when I decided to. So I didn't give it during my undergrad. Oxford actually had this sort of scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
So the Oxford MFE program, because a lot of the first level of CFA curriculum, they say 70% of that is covered in what we learn at Oxford. They also
Okay.
have a partnership with the CFA Institute. So
Mm-hmm.
they actually give you one try with a significant scholarship. So I actually decided once I got into Oxford that I would give that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I think I gave it in, I would say, 2016 July.
Okay, that was the year you were at
So,
Oxford.
yeah, just the year before I joined Oxford. I would not advise giving a level of the CFA when you're at Oxford. There were a few friends who did that, but to be honest, I mean, like it's a really, I mean, at least the MFE program is a really strenuous program,
Right.
and you to have the CFA right around the time that you're giving your MFE exams is
Mm-hmm.
quite stressful, especially given that a lot of the time you might be still looking for jobs then.
Okay. Okay. So you gave your level 1 before going to Oxford, and you took the other levels ahead after that, right?
Yeah, I took my level 1 before in Oxford. Took my level 2 right after coming, like right after the year after I finished Oxford, and after that I took my level 3.
Right.
I mean,
A-
once you're done with level 2, it's about finishing it off, right? I mean, no half, no nothing half baked.
Apart from all the various masters in degrees that are there out there that specialize in finance, why did you choose a specialization that merged with economics? And just a little thought on your decision making process of why you didn't choose like like an MSc, or if you wanted to dive into economics, why not an MA economics? And
This was
sort
an
of.
MSc. This was an MSc in financial economics, though.
Okay, okay. So why not like an MSc finance, and why did you want the economics part, and how does that change? How is it different from a normal MSc finance?
Yeah, so good question. I mean, so a lot of that comes down to, okay, so first let me address why not a pure play MSc in economics. Okay, uh, the first answer to that is that I did consider those programs as well. So I spoke to a lot of people, uh, and there were three programs that I was considering. There was, I think, in Colombia, there's a master's in
MA
economics that I was
Yeah.
considering. Uh, in the UK, Cambridge was a consideration. LSE was a consideration. Oxford was, of course, a consideration. What it really comes down to, though, is how much you feel you're practically inclined. Okay, and I think that is where uh, that element of finance comes in as well. I think what was very clear to me that, okay, so even before I made my master's decision, what was really clear to me was where I saw myself in terms of work, which industry, maybe not specifically, like
Right.
specific, I didn't think specifics in terms of venture capital, but I did definitely think about where I saw myself working. Now,
Mm-hmm.
so basically, you're being trained to be a really good economic researcher, right?
Right.
Essentially. And that's a great skill set to have for certain jobs as well. So it's wrong to say that academics is the only outlet. So, for instance, let me give you an example. I worked at Auxera, which is a huge European economic consulting firm. So, over there, what they used to do was essentially valuation, damages, and valuation essentially. So, for instance, to give you a basic example, let's say you are a company A and you are suing company B. All right. You are suing company B for certain uh, for a certain act that you are saying cost you X amount in damages, right? You need an economic expert on your side the same way you need a lawyer on your side. The economic expert is supposed to do the valuation of your damage claim. And that was one big area apart from the research side that Auxera did, that they worked on. So Auxera used to work on one, valuation for damages, two, regulation. So for instance, in the UK, a lot of the sectors are really sort of like, let's say, water services. These are all well regulated but run by state entities. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost semi privatized in some way. So these regulated entities need to determine, let's say, they need to determine what is the right price, what is a fair price for water, and they get economic experts to give them that analysis over there as well. So economics is not merely a dismal science for research. It is applicable. However, now this is the caveat. I think even if I did not do an MA in economics, even though I did a master's in financial economics, I could still work at Auxera. I'll tell you why
Right.
that finance aspect comes in, because having a basic understanding of finance teaches you the skill set to actually talk in real terms, right? I think you know what the end goal really is. In economics, a lot of it is theoretical forecasting.
Right.
These are all skills that we're learning. With what to do with hard data and make decisions with basis data today, I think that's a skill set, and that only finance can teach you. And I think if you're working in the industry, I think without a finance degree or without any basic knowledge of finance, just with an economics degree, if you're working in finance, I think it is a disadvantage. Yes, of course, there are training programs at all investment banks, etc. But why, when I'm doing a master's, why start off on a little bit of a disadvantage, right? I
Disadvantage.
mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
why not cover the, so that's why I felt the mix was perfect. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was. And now coming to the finance versus financial economics, right? This was a big decision factor between MIT and Oxford for me. So MIT actually attracts quantitative finance people really well. So engineers, right? Engineers who are very good with numbers,
Right.
uh, but like, for lack of a better word, I would say that, I mean, essentially they are so good with numbers that they're not like, they don't focus on the remaining aspects. So something like even basic accounting, due diligence, etc., is not a skill set that they would want to improve upon. So
Right.
quant finance is what a lot of US finance programs are emphasizing. So
Mm-hmm.
you get a lot of people working in algo trading, quant trading, coming out of those programs. So
Mm-hmm.
Oxford, that way is so okay. The benefit of MIT, first, let me highlight that the benefit of MIT is, if you know where your bent is, if you know that you're bent towards quant, if you know that you're a quantitatively bent human being who prefers to work in trading, then you should definitely pick that program. For
Right.
me personally, I was not so sure. So I wanted to keep my options open. I wanted to have a program that gave me that balance. And I think that's where Oxford fit in.
Well, I think yeah, that touched a lot of bases, and that's a very good reasoning, and I'm sure our students watching this will benefit from that decision making thought. And one thing I wanted to ask you is that you're working in Bangalore right now, but could you like sort of give us like a proper run through of what exactly you did after KPMG professionally, where you work, like Auxera Chain, I think it was a blockchain
So
centric the blockchain centric fund, and then I think you worked at a couple more companies. So could you like give us a brief overview of that?
yeah. So I think KPMG I've covered pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
KPMG and ASA. So ASA and KPMG were where I worked. So basically, when I went to the, let me actually tell you what I thought before I went to my master's. So I went to my master's thinking that I want to work in banking, but then that was my first thought, that everyone seems to be looking at investment banking. That seems to be the most coveted, and
Right.
for with reason, right? It's one of the most coveted, because there is, I mean, high paying salaries,
Yeah.
very good sort of learning base, right?
Mm-hmm.
Investment banking provides you the base that uh, you need for a lot of industries.
Correct.
So that was my second. So yeah, banking was a consideration, but to be honest, like it was with an end goal. Like I felt honestly that public market investing was really where I saw a lot of learning at that time. At least, like given
Okay.
that I'd done the CFA, I was biased. I think
Mm-hmm.
I did have a bias towards public market investing, and the idea there was that this is being on the buy side is really about analyzing stocks, learning about new industries,
Mm.
uh, having a opinion which is uh, backed by financial information. So
Right.
that was what it was all about. I think to this date, I remember my first few chats with my career counselors at Oxford. But one of the things they pointed out to me was that I didn't have any experience in investment banking at that time, and I had no sort of internships there. So they actually told me, quite to the contrary, that I should sort of look at consulting, and consulting was my best bet. And I don't know. I think one of the advice I would give, one piece of advice I would give to a lot of people is that I think it's good to take advice, but at the same time, like it's very good to take advice from a lot of people, but at the same time, if there's something you really want to do, always give it a shot. I think so. For instance, I made a lot of applications to top consulting firms, okay, but I got rejects from all, and I was very like I was like I felt like I mean I felt like I deserved an interview
Right.
at least. I mean when I say all, I mean I'm exaggerating, but what I mean is I applied to McKinsey, Bain,
Bain
BCG.
BCG.
I
Yeah.
didn't get, and that I applied to the London office as well.
Okay.
So didn't get a call back. And this was after doing what everyone asked you to do, right? Doing all
Right.
the networking that are necessary. Um, but my first sort of application to a buy side firm, I actually felt a lot more at home and a lot more at ease. Like Aberdeen was one of my first. I think that I mean I applied fairly late, but to be honest, that was my goal, right? I wanted to work in public markets,
Mm-hmm.
investing in the UK. So I was working at, at that time they were called Aberdeen Asset Management. They were one of the largest in the UK, one of the largest fund managers in the UK.
Okay.
Then I got that internship, but I was still aware that was just an internship, and I knew that I wanted something a little more concrete to fall back upon, because at least at that time I was fairly certain
Mm.
the UK is a great place to live in, right? I mean, I was fairly certain that um, I wanted the experience of working in the UK. So uh, the only caveat was I got this offer a little late. I got this in like let's say late is relative terms. Okay, so go for my I went for my course in September. I got this offer by Jan, and that is considered late because most programs like IB programs, etc., their application cycle almost begins even before you start your course. So like
Whoa.
August, September, August, September is the time these rolling admits start coming in,
For
and
real?
plus you're also yeah, very early, very early. So the like September for sure, August late would be very few, but September
Okay.
for sure, a lot of these people are
Wow.
already opening up there. And you have to think globally, right? Now you're not only looking at the UK. You're so we had people coming in, like when you're talking about Oxford, right? You're people coming into college to hire you are even like funds from Singapore, like Temasek, GIC. You have
Mm-hmm.
people from Dubai, people from the US, everywhere, right? With all geographies are well represented. So hiring is happening around the clock all year, right?
Right.
So you need to be prepared. I think you need to be prepared for stuff like when you enter Oxford for the first week, you're just like, oh God, like where? I mean, you really feel like in the first week of my MFE program, I really felt like a dud, to be honest, because I just felt like everyone was so much like everyone had something going for them. So and
Mm-hmm.
that I think is primarily because a lot of them come from the UK, like a lot of the students were from the UK already. So they were either used to this sort of application. We are used to like in India, we're used to colleges providing on-campus placement. The idea
Yeah.
of us going and applying on an online application is very rare, to
Yeah,
be
it's
honest.
daunting.
Yeah, and so these guys had a lot of cover letters ready. They'd already done their networking. Then
Okay.
a lot of the European students already had offers from consulting. So they had McKinsey Germany offers, BCG Germany offers. So like, you know, as a young 21, 22-year-old, when you're listening to all of this, I mean, you're obviously going to doubt yourself. You're going to be like,
Yeah.
dude, what am I doing? Like, why don't I have all of this? And did I like, am I really, really out of my breath here? Like, I mean, am I really out of depth over here? And I think that was the first few weeks, but you slowly learn to enjoy it. I think because you learn that. I think international students, as such, have it a little tougher. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to accept the fact that you are already at a little bit of a disadvantage. Which is why I was coming back to the point that you should try and make sure that odds are in your favor through whatever you can do. So whatever those guys are doing, you need to be doing a little more.
More
I
than
mean, to
that.
stand. Yeah, so that is there. But coming back to my sort of case, I also towards the end of mid Feb, I also got an offer full time from Auxera. So Auxera was the economic consulting firm, but I was fairly certain that I would work my butt off to try to convert the fund management internship that I had with Aberdeen. But like, I guess fate or whatever, but towards the end of the year, Aberdeen merged with Standard Life, and they
Okay.
became the largest fund manager in the UK. Now, what this meant was two things. So this is 2016-17. I don't know whether this is as relevant today, but 2016-17, there was this whole debate going on between passive and active fund managers. To give you the basics on that, a passive fund manager is someone like a BlackRock. Okay, what they
Yeah.
essentially do is they have funds tracking your indexes essentially. So very low fees, very little differentiation. You're essentially just buying all the assets in an index. It's a reflection of the index. So if the index goes up, your money gives you good returns. So during that period, actually 2010 to 2016, if you remember, the markets were just going up, right?
Right.
Markets were just sort of like, over the past 6 years, active asset management had taken a hit like any. So
Yeah.
basically everyone was questioning whether active asset managers or stock pickers, the most ardent example would, or the most well-known example would be someone like a Warren Buffett, right? So
Right.
whether these people actually have any value. And Aberdeen was one of the largest active asset managers, and so was Standard Life. So they came together. They were like, listen, we know that we're in an industry where our costs are being questioned already. We're already being questioned on our fees, and we're being questioned on our relevance. So let's merge and become the largest. And what that meant effectively was a lot, like in real terms, what it meant for me was a lot less conversion from their internship, because they were really low on sort of uh, assets that they were, people that they were hiring.
Okay.
Let's just say,
Yeah.
let's just say that they made a conscious decision to sort of lay off a large proportion of
Understood.
their
Yeah.
workforce, right? So we were about four interns who were in. I was in the equities division at Aberdeen, specifically emerging market equities and EMEA equities. There were the two teams I worked with. One was in London, one was in Edinburgh. So it was great. I got to live in Edinburgh for a bit as well,
Wow,
and
that's cool.
London. But yeah, so great. I had a great experience, to be honest. Like, the way these fund managers work is every day it's a bunch of 10 people or 12 people who are managing. Per person they'd be managing about 200 million USD, like,
Wow.
because total the total value of the fund would be about 2 to 3 billion, right? So I mean, so essentially a lot of money at their hands. So really, but they were long-term investors, so they didn't make short-term day trading based decisions. They made decisions based on, so they thought of companies and uh, purchases in companies as pretty much a marriage rather than a short-term relationship. So
Right.
they really, what the skill set that I really learned was how to like get a very good bottom-up understanding of a company by interaction. And this is very wholesale, right? I mean, you don't do your due diligence just on paper. You understand the people, you understand the management, you understand how they look at the future, what they think of the industry, what sort of strategy they've deployed. So you're actually, as an active asset manager, trying to see what you can find out, or what sort of thesis you can get, which is different from what the market thinks, because that you need to find value
The
where,
difference. Yeah.
like, where others don't see it
Yeah.
necessarily. So that was what I learned, and I think I really loved that internship. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I feel like I would have enjoyed continuing with them. But I had a full-time offer in my hands. So I even after finishing with Aberdeen, I stayed in touch with the asset managers. Still to date, I'm very close to them. I mean, it's just that I really enjoyed the relationship that we built over that period of time, and the sort of work I did was probably also like very well appreciated.
So I think that brings me to like my last question over here. How has your day to day changed for the better or for the worse? Given the onset of the pandemic, and your outlook in the industry and recovery, and advice to students graduating during such tumultuous times.
um, my day to day my day to day has I spend significantly lesser time on travel. So I definitely have saved up about 45 minutes to an hour day to day, probably a little more than that. I definitely feel less exhausted during the day due to this, because I've been able to incorporate a workout on a day to day basis as well. It's much easier for me to do things that I feel are much more organized. I think one of the things I did very early, because I was working with OneChain previously and I'd experienced remote work already, one of the things I did very early on was to have some sort of a schedule, which I think always helps. I think it's very important, given that, I mean, there is a tendency to sort of hold very low standards when no one's watching, right, as human beings. But I think keeping some sort of a schedule, keeping some things that are going for you, keeping something that is not necessarily related to work also on your day to day is very important, because at the same time, it is motivation as well, right? I think motivation is at an all-time low when you don't see an
Totally.
end. So also keeping something which you're looking forward to at the end of all of this, planning those things. So never forgetting what, like, I mean, like for instance, I remember towards the start of this year, I'd planned out my holidays. Like I'd already made a plan for how I was using my 20 days of leave that I get. And now I was just staring at that, and I was like, wow, I feel so stupid now. But yeah, so that graduating today, right? I mean, I think students who are graduating today, firstly, I'm so sorry that you guys have had to have some sort of, some sort of time at least not on campus. I know that it's that in itself, and like missing certain moments, right? Missing your farewell, etc. These are
Yeah.
all things that are such a, it's a memory you hold for lifetimes. I mean, it's really sad, but at the same time, uh, like I think there are people who are very there are good people out there in the world who are very acknowledging of the times. And when I'm sure when you look at someone who's graduated in 2020, they will know what you've already gone through. And I think in some ways, uh, going through these challenges at an early time in your life really prepares you. I think for like the kind of mental strength this will give you probably will prepare you for something which maybe someone would crumble towards later. Like I mean, at the age of 25, if you experience your first hardship, then you're not built the sort of strength to deal with something
Tenacity.
like that.
Yeah.
So I think that tenacity and that grit goes a long way. And I think, I mean, never look at your career in the short term, right? I think you're talking about a 30, 40-year career at least, right? And what is 1 year? It's a minor blip in that
Yeah.
one. And just it's important to also like have that perspective always, and slowly understand that things will get back to better. So I mean, you want to look at yourself at the end of all of this and see, have I become a better, like in career terms, have I become more technically accomplished, am I more well rounded? And there are many ways to do those things, right? I think the amount of resources that are available today, I think are three resources that I really would use on. I personally use on a day to day. I mean, I think everyone should. Firstly, is I would say Twitter, because I think the amount of people you can follow and basis your interests is really good. Secondly, YouTube, man. I think the kind of content that people are producing these days, you have one sort of channel for anything you want to learn. And I think finally books, right? I think you need to on a day-to-day, keep reading, right? I think just developing these sort of perspectives in itself will give you a very, very sound understanding and will give you a very good base for you to prepare yourself for your career. I think it's a great time that you're getting also. Like uh, in a normal case, you would probably be in your desk jobs now as soon as you graduate. But understand that you're getting to work from home. Because you're getting to work from home, you're able to build a much better sort of lifestyle. Because I'll tell you, like from personal experience, my first 6 months working, I didn't have it that easy. Like it was very difficult to sort of learn the ropes and sort of maintain balance. I think the first 6 months you tend to just focus, either become too focused on work, right, or take too much stress, and suddenly
Totally.
you're just like, whoa, what's happening? Like,
Yeah.
have I become old? Like I feel tired by like what's going on. So I mean, these are all opportunities for you to sort of understand and like understand the effects that are going on, and in some ways things are going to change, right? I think there is some of these effects are going to be permanent. So if there is something that's going to be coming out of this, I feel like there could be some positives as well. Like I'm sure there are negatives in the short term, but in the long term, there are lots of positives to come out of this as well.
Totally.
So I think have that perspective and be optimistic. I mean, you just do the right things on a day to day, and there's no reason to not be optimistic. In terms of the recovery, I think markets are not necessarily a reflection of current times. Markets are forward looking, plus markets are excessively bullish at this moment. I think uh, like I don't know whether you follow a lot of analysts, but if you follow Chamath, Palapatya, etc. on Twitter, you'll
Mhm.
see that essentially the uh, a lot of what has changed is a lot more fundamental. Like basically industries have gone down and industries have changed forever. Travel industry being one, retail being the other. If you look at companies and what they're doing, like in these spaces, companies, even airlines, for instance, all of these businesses have fundamentally reduced significantly, right? And it
Yeah.
reduced whatever reduced eh, not just when their revenues reduce, they will reduce their costs. When they reduce their costs, they will start cutting down on things that they used to spend on. So it's a cyclical domino effect. So because they are reducing their spending, things like services that they were being provided, softwares that they were using, they will no longer get money. So SaaS businesses that were selling to them will now have to find clientele elsewhere at this particular point in time. And when bankruptcies happen one by one, you know how banking sector is again like the
Yeah.
base for everything. So essentially you are looking at something which will possibly affect us for the next 18 months at least.
At
And
least. Yeah.
to to even believe that things will, I mean, there were these memes going on, right? I mean, be happy about the fact that first half of 2020 is over, glass half full or whatnot. But I was just like, dude, second half is going to be worse, because
Yeah.
second half is when everyone, expectation is what kills you. And now we built up expectation that, I'm going to be fine. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I thought I was going to be back at work by September. And I'm pretty sure that
Yeah.
those
That's not gonna
expectations are
happen.
no longer real. So, I mean, yeah, it's so I think it's in this sort of recession to be really, I would say, make decisions that provide you some sort of stability as well. I think it's at the base of everything is making sure that you're not significantly taking on excessive risk. I would always put like a little bit of emphasis on that. So try and make decisions that limit your risk or limit your downside risk. Usually you'd be looking at your upside and trying to maximize that. Right now I would say look the other way.
One more thing I wanted to talk about is, a lot of people are right now struggling to get internships and work experience. A lot of people whose internships have been cancelled. So, do you have something to tell them to, some literally advice to tell them of how they can better spend their time and how they can like network better and maybe land an internship during these times and how to basically innovate during these
It's
times of
really
COVID?
difficult, man. It's really
Yeah.
difficult. So I say is that it is very, very okay to not be interning right now, or it is very okay to like just understand that it is a consequence of the situation you're in at this moment. But what you, as I said, what you could possibly do is reach out to people you would not have initially considered in your primary, right? So, for instance, if let's say consulting firms are not hiring, why not reach out to a startup? So, like, I mean, I'm giving you an example. Let's say
Yeah.
you're a lawyer. Right? If you're a lawyer, a law firm may not be hiring you, but there are other people who are facing problems of their own who may need you, right? Startups are not able to hire uh, big check lawyers, but you could provide your services as an intern. You could be so much more valuable to them. So
Totally.
understand that everyone is going through some sort of an issue of their own. So if you've not gotten an internship, it's up to you to sort of look out for opportunities that may not actually be that attractive to you, but you could actually be that much more attractive to the organization. So, like,
Hmm.
trying to really sort of think on, like, rather than going for the big brands sometimes when the big brands fall through, I think it's about trying to do something that could be more high impact for the organization that you're working.